Hi, everyone, and welcome to the art of meal prep. Certainly a lost art in many homes, and we're going to be talking about tonight what you can do to rectify that in your home. I want to start off by welcoming everyone. If I've not had a chance to meet any of you that are listening tonight, I want to first start by introducing myself. I'm Dr. Arland Hill, and it's my passion to educate and to motivate. But truly, my passion revolves around nutrition and all things nutrition, from farm to family to fork, anything along the nutrition continuum. That is what I have an interest in, and I enjoy learning about it so that I can share with you to be able to make educated decisions for you and for your family. I want to begin as we get rolling tonight. I want to look at, first of all, just starting out talking about how to meal prep. What are some of the things that we need to be thinking about when we start talking about meal preparation? And first thing you need to realize is that when we talk about meal preparation, there are a lot of benefits to being able to prepare your own food, to be able to plan for a couple of days at a time in terms of what that's going to be able to, or what that's going to mean for you in terms of being able to stick with your decisions about your food. And quite frankly, it's one of those things that it can be a nourishing decision in that you're oftentimes going to be able to grab a more nutritious option than what you were if you were not prepared. It's going to save you certainly some time and thought that otherwise you would be putting into that meal that you may be thinking about. What am I going to consume when I get home? These are all things that the ability to meal prep can begin to alleviate in your life. And so if we think about the overall concept being to make more meals at once so that we're limiting the number of times that you have to engage with food for the preparation process, we're limiting the number of times that you have to cook throughout the week. And ultimately what we're trying to do here is leverage your time so that you can be more efficient with your food. Now, we don't want to minimize the importance of the relationship with food, and that's certainly one that all of us have to acknowledge because it influences all of our health. But we want to be able to leverage that time and make you more efficient. And if we can evolve to the point where we're better understanding the value of storing meals, and whether that means something you prepare ahead of time, or maybe you've got some raw options there that you combine together that you can quickly grab out of the refrigerator. Whatever that looks like for you, that's how we want to evolve this conversation for you around meal prepping and how you begin to think about it. So let me pose a question here, just starting us out, and that is to ask, what's the big deal about meal prepping anyway? One of the things that I want to do before we get into this is share this amazing looking meal with you. And this is a single pan chicken thigh vegetable combo, a little bit of a mouthful there. But what this is it's a single meal that is all prepared in the same dish. And you can see that it would be very easy to have some variety here. You've got the vegetables there with some broccoli and some tomatoes, a couple of bell peppers, red bell peppers mixed into that, along with 2 chicken thighs. Now, you could easily have this, especially if you're only going to eat one of those chicken thighs at a time. This could easily double over as 2 meals, and depending on how big of a pan that you use on this, you may even be able to get more mileage out of this, more meals out of this for you and for the family as well. Let's take a look at some of the benefits of meal prepping, and there are several to consider here. So I'm just going to give you a couple to think about as you're beginning to incorporate this into your routine. Right out of the gate, we should think more free time. I mean, who doesn't want to have more time to themselves, more time to be able to enjoy the things that are around them, that they find pleasure in? Maybe you want to spend more time with your spouse or with your kids. Or maybe you just want some time to better to engage in your hobbies or just doing some reading. So more availability of time. Common sense would say that if I'm not spending time doing one thing, then I'm going to have more time to do other things. We would consider that a smaller food bill might be a benefit of meal prepping. And some might ask, well, how is this going to be a smaller food bill? Well, a couple of reasons for this is that, one, many choose to eat out. We know that most individuals prefer eating out, or maybe not prefer, but choose to eat out as a matter of convenience. Well, instead of having to go out and eat and spend the extra money that often comes along with eating out, you're going to not be eating out, so you're going to be able to save that money. And the other thing that's important in regards to a smaller food bill is that you typically are going to better utilize the foods that you are consuming. And so what that means is that rather than having food that ultimately is going to get thrown out, or food that might go bad in the refrigerator, you've put some thought into this and you know how you're going to use that food, and you're going to use it by a set amount of time. And so the likelihood that food is going to be wasted is going to be much less. Now, a couple of other benefits that I personally see in meal prepping is that you're going to have some healthier variety. You're going to increase your options. If you're putting some planning forth, you're going to make selections for food that maybe you haven't otherwise been choosing as a part of your diet. And maybe you're even starting to venture out into looking at some recipes that you can prepare in an efficient time manner but that will last you over a couple of days. So there's more variety, and that variety often tends to be healthier. If you're an individual that is attentive to their weight, you're going to be able to better control your diet overall. So your food choices are going to be more in line with the dietary pattern that you're trying to adhere to. And therefore, weight management becomes almost a bit of a second thought with this. And then overall, sharper mind. I tend to think about this in regards to the number of decisions that you have to make. It's not only about the improvement in the food that you're consuming being healthier food and the impact that that has on the body for reducing inflammation and having a sharper mind for balancing your blood sugar, but also when you're less bogged down with mundane decisions. And food can fall into that category sometimes. If you have a strategic approach to your food decision-making process, that's one less decision you have to make over the course of a day. And actually, in reality, it's probably multiple fewer decisions that you're making over the course of a day. So up next, I want to get into detail about how meal prepping can really benefit and add overall value to your life. And if I start off by asking the question, what's one thing you can never get back? Well, most of us are going to acknowledge that time is certainly the one thing that we can't turn back the hands of time. We all know that. We're not going to get it back. And life doesn't pause for spending hours every night making dinner. So that amount of time that you're investing in making dinner every night, the question becomes, is there a way that we can better leverage that? And meal prepping, admittedly, up front does take time, but it will probably take more time at once than you're used to, especially initially. But it's the frequency that's a key factor. If you add up the total amount of time every day and then factor that for 7 days in a week and look at how much time you spent going through the meal prepping process versus the amount of time if you did it all at once, what you will find is that your investment of time all at once ends up being less than if you calculated and added all that up over the course of a week. So you have to factor that into it. When you start to also figure in things like running to the store, the amount of cleanup afterwards, the amount of time in the store, to me, can really start to bog you down, because it's not just a matter of getting to the store, it's how much time did you waste while you were in the store. And so these are all things that can be reduced in ways that you can leverage your time if you start thinking about meal prepping as a consistent part of your routine. Now, the way that this works for a lot of individuals is that most individuals that are doing meal prepping will take a block of time somewhere during the week, oftentimes during the weekend, to prepare for the whole week. And they may even, some folks will do this every 3 to 4 days. So they may do this twice a week. Again, it's whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be hard and fast in terms of how this gets implemented. But you can pick a day or 2 days and dedicate it to your weekly shopping, your cooking, and you can begin to prepare this as you please. And as soon as you prepare that, you put it in the refrigerator and freezer, and you're all set until it's time to consume that. And therefore, the amount of time that you get back, the preservation of your energy is enhanced. So there becomes several attributes that you want to factor into the overall process of meal prepping. Now, can this be a big savings for you? And I think certainly you have to factor into this conversation the escalating prices on food right now. So certainly none of us want to be wasting money when it comes to food. We certainly don't want to see that food go bad or spoil. given that we're thinking in terms of consuming food that is in its natural state and has a greater propensity inherently because of the lack of preservatives to spoil or to rot. And that, of course, is the kind of food that we want to be eating, but we also want to make sure that we're using that food and not wasting it. And so a couple of things to consider here is that for the first time in the history of America, we're spending considerably more money at restaurants than we do in grocery stores or other outlets, such as maybe a farmer's market or some type of delivery service to our home. We still spend more money as a country in restaurants. And even when you start to factor in, if you're looking for daily specials and maybe you factor in a coupon that you see or something like that, even when you calculate all that stuff out, it's still expensive to buy food. So cooking at home, it was specifically when you're cooking in bulk, can save you a significant amount of money off of your food expenses. You're better putting that food to use. And the intention behind meal prepping overall is to be prepared so that the food is readily available to you for at least a couple of days. So now you've distributed that consumption of food over multiple days. And when you buy in larger quantities, now you begin to see that there's not just more value at the cash register when we start talking about larger quantities, but now you're actually consuming that increased quantity of food that you bought and that you saved on. So one of the things to keep in mind in terms of how we want to scale these savings for you and how we want to put this whole meal preparation process to work for you, it's really about having impact on multiple aspects of your life and not simply just in terms of the moment at which you're consuming the food. When you start looking at getting into the habit, or once you get into the habit of meal prepping, you'll begin to recognize what your staples are, the things that you want to consider essential for you and your likes and your desires, and you'll want to keep those around. And those are the things that you can begin to buy those in bulk because you know you're going to routinely use those. Now, look at this beautiful dish here. This is a beef bacon, kale, and ranch egg scramble. I would love to have that in the morning to get my day started. What a wonderful source of protein in there. Some good healthy fats along with that coming from those eggs. And so if you can start out with something like this and just looking at how you could potentially prepare a dish like this, how could you do this ahead of time and make this extremely fast? Because most of you are thinking, oh, I'm going to have to crack the eggs, I'm going to have to cut up the bacon, I'm going to have to thaw the bacon out. No, what you do with this is that you're going to consume this within 2 to 3 days, and these foods are easily going to last that time frame. So you're going to cut that beef bacon up ahead of time, and you're going to have that sitting in a small dish in the refrigerator, staying good. You're going to go ahead and take those eggs, crack those eggs, put them in a dish that you can store in. You've scrambled them up, and then you're going to take the kale, have that kale already chopped up. So now literally all you have to do is when you get up in the morning and you're ready to have breakfast and you're on that timeline trying to get out the door, you put in a single pan that beef bacon, get it warmed up, put the kale in there, wilt those leaves ever so slightly, drop your eggs in there, scramble that up, add your favorite seasonings in this, and you're off to the races, guys. You've got a quick, easy dish that you did some meal prepping ahead of time, and it saved you several minutes in the morning, and it reduced your stress trying to get out the door. And because you had that breakfast, now you're operating on a high protein energy source that is going to carry you on towards the lunchtime of the day. Now, there are a couple of things that when we start talking about meal prepping, we need to think about. And speaking of grocery shopping, do you know how they say not to grocery shop when you're hungry? We've all heard that. Well, I think it should be hungry and unprepared. It's okay to go to the grocery store hungry if you have a prepared plan ahead of you. There's nothing wrong with that, but when you're walking in there aimlessly and you don't have any objectives to your time spent in the grocery store, you should anticipate that you are likely or much more likely to make the wrong decisions. So without a plan for the week, you're going to be more inclined to make impulse purchases that you otherwise wouldn't make. And I want you to consider this now. When you go into that grocery store and you're looking around and you don't have a plan in there, you have just become a victim to the marketing of the food industry. They know how to grab your attention after years and years of research and observation and watching how people respond to marketing. They know how to grab your attention and start to steer you towards making a choice that otherwise, if you had a plan and you went into the grocery store and you executed that plan, you wouldn't otherwise be even considering or anywhere in the vicinity of these foods that are blasting you with marketing and throwing false terms at you that are misleading you in what's really in these foods. So don't be a victim to that. Direct your grocery store efforts in the areas that don't have the marketing with a set out plan. Same thing for the farmer's market or wherever you're getting your food from. Make sure you have a plan and objective when you're interacting in these areas. Now, let's talk about healthy food made easy. We want to make sure that we're consuming good healthy dishes that are going to be nourishing for us, but if we can make them easy, we certainly want to try to do that as well. The current standard diet of most Americans is comprised mostly of food-like substances. You see these terms like processed and ultra-processed, and you think, how in the world, even this term ultra-processed, how in the world is that getting applied to our current food? It just really speaks to the question of, is this even food that we're consuming anymore or that's being offered to us? And when you look at what's added to these foods and you start thinking about the ingredients that they put in here, and I use that term ingredients very loosely here as well, the ingredients that are set up to create an addiction so that we come back for these foods, the whole model around this is wrong. And so we don't even want to go down that road. We want to stick to the path of making healthy food choices that are also easy. And so as I mentioned before, it takes a lot of time and energy to cook your meals every single day. So we want to manipulate that in a positive way. We want to modify your strategy around this. And so most people choose to find the easiest option when they're tired at the end of the day. You've put in a long day, you've worked hard, and now you're just opening the refrigerator or the pantry and grabbing something, or worse yet, you just grab something in a fast food line or takeout from a local restaurant, and we all know that those things are not the best options. There's always going to be some problem with that. And then when you start thinking about the role that meal prepping plays here, it literally begins to fix this problem of not having an option and being forced to, or at least feel like you're forced to choose these less healthy options as your primary meal for that evening. Now, having good food that you want to eat when available for you at home, there's an appeal to that. You're going to be more attracted to that. You're going to forget about the drive-through. If you know that food you prepared ahead of time, you know that food's sitting in the refrigerator, and it's not only more nourishing, but it's going to have the flavor that you're looking for, that you desire, and you put your time and effort into that. If you know that food is waiting for you when you get home, you're going to go home and you're going to eat that food. And so that is just another way that we can think about not only making the process easy, but making the process healthy in the same time. Now, we probably wouldn't do the whole healthy conversation justice if I didn't just at least make a few comments around weight control. There's some things we want to factor in here. And this is not something that is necessarily a topic for maybe bodybuilders or fitness stars or people on TV. This is for everybody. And what I find about when I talk to patients and we start working through the process of meal prepping, and I'm helping them overcome some hurdles that they have, and we're going to be talking about some tools that I use with them that each of you can take advantage of. But these are all things that when I'm helping them implement this meal preparation process, weight control becomes a secondary thought for them, because it's no longer about the weight when you're making the right choices that are consistent with how your body operates and that are going to be nourishing your body. So let me throw something out at you that I thought was pretty interesting, and it's something that you cannot be a part of. So hang with me on this. So here we go. So according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the average American has experienced a 23% increase in daily calories between the years 1970 and 2008. That's over 500 calories a day. My wife showed me a picture of individuals lining up to go to see Star Wars at the movie theater back in the 1970s, and then a more recent line outside of a movie theater. And there was a very significant difference in the overall physical appearance of the people in 1970s versus in the 2010s. And so literally in that 35, 40-year time frame, we've seen that the control of weight, we've seen that the metabolic dysfunction has drastically increased. And we know that there's multiple factors for that. And this is not a conversation about weight control tonight. But we have to understand that when we can start making better meal prepping decisions, it tames overeating as a whole. You're more conscious about the food you're eating. Sizing and portions becomes very easy to manage, and your overall weight management becomes, again, a second thought. It's not something that you struggle with anymore. Now, what about brain food? Well, a couple of things in relation to brain food that I want to talk about here. And one of the things that we need to factor in is that research has proven that the constant strain of having to make multiple decisions wears your brain out over the course of a day. And we all know that life has gotten more hectic. It's not less hectic. And as a result of that, we're finding that individuals run into what I like to call decision fatigue. You keep making decisions until you just don't want to have to keep making decisions at the end of the day. You just want to chill out and relax and vegetate for a little bit before you call it a night. And we see that if we didn't have to make so many decisions, we would probably make better decisions around food. So why not make the food decision-making process easy and go ahead and prepare ahead of time? It's also interesting that when you look at this from a mental health professional standpoint, some behavioral psychologists will focus specifically on this concept of willpower. And we know willpower trying to make the right decision. And to some degree, you can willpower the right decision for a short period of time. But think about willpower like a muscle, and you're working out that muscle. And let's say you're doing curls or push-ups or whatever the exercise is. You know, you start doing that exercise, and the first one, no problem. The second one, no problem. The third one, the fourth one, the fifth one, the sixth one, you're cruising right along with that. But when you hit that 8th, 9th, 10th, you're not as good as you were when you started. And that's the same thing that is to be said for willpower. So even if you think you have good willpower, your willpower over time declines. So we don't need to be putting ourselves in a situation where we're bombarding ourselves with having to make decisions that we could easily be alleviating having to make in the first place if we would just do some preparation ahead of time. So keep that in mind. Now, when we talk about our brain power, look at this dish. This is a grass-finished ground beef and zucchini and tomato skillet. And this is such a quick, easy dish. And we know beef is nature's brain-building food. And therefore, we want to harness as much of that brain-building ability as we can absolutely harness. And there's going to be multiple benefits on this. I was looking at some literature yesterday and saw a new compound that is in beef, or one that's not very frequently talked about, called amactine. And this is one that is being shown to help with neurological function. Not to mention you get the choline in here. You get carnitine to help push these fatty acids into the cells to be used for energy, which our neurons can function on. So there's just numerous aspects, including the protein component in beef, which can be used to build our neurotransmitters. But as it relates to our conversation tonight around meal preparation, if we look at this dish and think, if I took some ground beef and threw that into a skillet and browned that really quickly, and then took some zucchini, which I had cut up ahead of time, and maybe some tomatoes in there, which I had cut up ahead of time, and just threw all this in. How quickly could I have a meal that I would feel very good about, and how easy would it be to overcook this meal so that I or my family members have leftovers for tomorrow, and I'm not going back and thinking about what am I going to cook for them for lunch tomorrow, or any of these other aspects about needing food. You've already got it prepared, and this would be very easy to do with a ground chicken or a ground turkey or a ground bison or ground lamb. There's any number of options that you could employ here. Just make some slight tweaks to this. Maybe instead of zucchini, you want to throw some yellow squash in there. Maybe you like onions. You could toss some onions in that, and you've got a very nutritious dish that took very, very little time to make, just because you put some preparation into the conversation at the beginning of your week. Now, I want to talk about environmentally conscious eating, and most of you are going to think, oh, we're going to be talking about plants and eating plants versus animals, and we're not going to be talking about that at all. That's not my thought process. In fact, I just showed you on the prior slide about eating beef, as well as making recommendations for multiple other meats that we should be eating as well, and I said should be eating. No, what I'm talking about with environmentally conscious eating is a whole different conversation. And let me ask you something here as I get into what I want to share with you around this topic is, if I could give you back $640, just put it right back in your hand, would you be interested in that? I'm pretty sure everyone would be interested in that, myself included. And so, according to an American Chemistry Council survey, the average United States household throws away $640 of food per year. And guys, that's just simply wasteful, and it's also lack of preparation. And so if we would take the time to better figure out how we're going to use the food that we have purchased, or have a plan to buy the food and then execute that plan and actually use that food, we're not going to have the waste. And ultimately, if we didn't buy something that we didn't use, those dollars stay in our pocket. So this whole idea around excess food, if we can plan efficiently, that is alleviated. Having your meals packaged separately in the refrigerator, you're going to have more accurate sizing on your meals, how much you need, how much is going to fill your plate for you, how much you can have for a leftover that's going to be satisfying for you to have as a meal the next day. So when it comes to environmentally conscious eating, it's really more about just not being wasteful at the end of the day. Now, thankfully, I didn't get chastised too much with this when I was a kid, but we've all heard this, because as kids, we've probably all been guilty of this at some time, about playing with your food. Well, we weren't supposed to play with our food when we were kids, but I'm going to encourage you as adults to play with your food. And what I mean by that is that meal prepping has a unique way of taking you out of your comfort zone when it comes to eating. And that's a good thing, because it exposes you to food that you may not have been accustomed to. You may begin to stray and start to find some staple recipes that you really do enjoy and didn't think that you would otherwise enjoy. And it takes you away from that mundane dietary approach where, again, you're just limited to the same choices. You have more control over your diet when you're beginning to engage in the meal prepping process. Why be boring? Right? Instead, put some variety, put some spice back into your dietary, into your diet, into your food consumption, and keep it fresh and keep it fun. I mean, you might as well enjoy food. Most of us enjoy the process of eating it, and so you may be surprised what's out there that you enjoy that you're not currently indulging in. Now, maybe what many of you are asking at this point is, okay, you've given me some context, you give me some background, and how do I get started in this? Well, let me give you some ideas that can get you started. The benefits of pre-planning and prepping your meals are going to sell themselves to you. You do this a few times and you're going to be bought in. You're going to see how this is going to change things for you. So here's a couple of things that I think are good ideas, good starting points that you can start to take advantage of or start to employ. So first off, take an inventory of the food that you currently have. What's already in your refrigerator, your freezer, your pantry? How can you begin to do some quick meal planning just for yourself so that you can begin to see how you can work this? What can you start to just dice up or cut up so you can grab it quickly? What can you go ahead and prepare as part of a maybe as an evening meal? What can you go ahead and do ahead of time before you have to start the cooking process that is not going to have to be done that night? So just take an initial inventory. Go to the internet and look up some fun recipes that you may want to try from a trusted resource. One of the things that we do at harvesthillsranch.com, and I'll share this with you at the end of the presentation again, but that's harvesthillsranch.com. There is a page on our website that is Cooking with Leah. And my wife Leah goes through, and she is certainly a trusted resource, and she is going to show you how to cook and how to quickly prepare these dishes that she prepares in our own home that are nourishing, but didn't take her hours over the stove to try to prepare these, or even take an exorbitant amount of time in the preparation process. Once you get done with that, go ahead and make yourself a grocery list of any of the ingredients that you'll need that you don't currently have. And then once you get home, you need to sort your food, or an idea is to sort your food into two different categories. Have a cook now pile and have a cook later pile. And just quickly separate those out into groups. And the ones that you're going to use as far as cook now, go ahead and cook those. This was something that we used to do when we came back from the farmer's market. We would go to the farmer's market, make our purchases, and as soon as we got home, we put everything out on the counter, and we would start differentiating. Okay, this goes into this pile. We're going to eat this later in the week. We don't need to prepare that yet. Let's go ahead and stick that over there, and that's probably going to go into the refrigerator to stay good until we make a trip to the farmer's market next week. So those are just some quick, easy strategies. As far as your produce that you're bringing home, whether it's from the grocery store, the farmer's market, maybe you went and visited a local farm, go ahead and prep that. Clean it up. That way, when you open the refrigerator, it's ready to go. You can even, if it's something that needs to be cut up and diced up, go ahead and put it in a storage dish, a glass or ceramic storage dish, and then all you got to do is grab it and start eating. And then cook enough so that you have food for at least 3 to 4 days. The general observation that I've been able to make here is that individuals that do preparation once a week or twice a week do very well going forward with their meal preparation and sticking to their goals. Individuals that are preparing more frequently than that are typically not going to be successful long term, because you're starting to get into this habit of you're falling back into your old habits of I'm having to prepare things too frequently, and you're going to slip, and as you slip, you know how this goes, it becomes easier over time. Now, if you're an individual that likes to stay organized, hey, put some labels on that food. Me, I personally know what I threw in there, so put in my containers what I stored, and so I have a good working idea as I grab those out of my refrigerator or other storage area. But if you like to label things, make it easy on yourself, and you can take off running. Now, what about some recipes? Come on, Dr. Hill, give me some recipes. Okay, let's talk some recipes. So let's start off with eggs. And eggs are certainly a staple to many individuals' breakfasts. We think about eggs as being a breakfast food. Many people will eat eggs on the weekends, or if they go to a diner, they'll make eggs as their purchase option there. And that's a shame, because there's a lot of opportunity to use eggs otherwise that we should be taking advantage of. So what if I told you there are plenty of ways that you can prepare eggs, and really as limited as your imagination is going to be how limited you are in your eggs. There's so many things you can do with eggs. And what makes eggs unique is most people are in the mindset of chicken eggs. Well, one of the things that we intentionally did out here at Harvest Hills Ranch is we started raising ducks and guineas and other animals, other poultry that had other sources of eggs. So now we don't only have chicken eggs, we have duck eggs, we have guinea eggs, and we also sell these to our customers. And the point of this is that it creates variety. So now you may be doing eggs more than one day, but it's not the same egg. It's a different variety of egg, and they're all going to have their own uniquenesses and textures. For example, a duck egg is a bit creamier. And one of the things that you may do with your eggs, you may boil your eggs. And sometimes you want that egg that's only been boiled for maybe around 3 to 4 minutes. And so it keeps the yolk fairly soft. And other times you're going to want to use those eggs or have those eggs. Maybe you're thinking about using these in a salad and you're going to keep them in the water for longer, 15 minutes if you want a good hard boil on those. And so that way you've got a different consistency and texture in your yolk. But those are things that you can take those eggs, cook several of those ahead of time. You can even cook the chicken, the duck. You can cook these all at the same time, right in the same pot, in the same boiling water, and you can have different options going throughout the week. Another one that we really like around here are going to be egg muffins. And so literally with this one, you can just chop up some veggies. You could use different veggies on different days to keep the variety high. And again, the different eggs. And you literally are just going to mix these up with some scrambled eggs when you beaten eggs, not scrambled yet as far as heating it, but would you just whip these eggs up? You're going to mix those veggies up in there, pour them in the little tin trays, stick that in the oven for typically 350 degrees for 20-25 minutes. And guys, you're going to have these egg muffins. And just like you would think about with a regular muffin, instead of it being a wheat or flour-based muffin, you've got an egg muffin. Not an egg McMuffin, just an egg muffin. And you're going to store those in the refrigerator. They're just as good in the 2 to 3 days after you initially made them as they are on the day that you cooked them. So eggs have so many different options that you can run with and things that you can mix into them to have a lot of spice and variety in your options. Now, what about smoothies? Man, smoothies are great. After my workout days in the morning, I love a good smoothie. It just goes down easy. I know I'm getting some high quality nutrition in very quick. I'm using some protein powders that are going to fuel me after that workout and help me rebuild and recharge. And so they're a great option when it comes to breakfast, or even once in a while when it's just hot outside and I just don't feel like consuming a hot meal, but I know I need some nourishment. I can take some things that are already prepared. Maybe I've got some frozen veggies. Or frozen fruit that I can just drop right in the blender. I can take a few other, maybe I've got some sliced or diced up carrots that I can throw in there. Maybe a banana, blueberries, kiwi, whatever your combination fancy is. You can make it work with a smoothie and make it taste good. You could put some nuts in there, some pecans, walnuts, hazelnuts, give it a nice additional nutty flavor, and even throw a good healthy protein in there that's going to up your protein intake and help contribute to all those advantages I was alluding to earlier when it comes to protein. And then if you even need a little bit of fiber, depending on what your fiber needs are, hey, throw a little bit of fiber in there. Throw some flax, throw some chia, throw a mixed blend in there of different fibers. And don't overdo it. It'll make your smoothie a little on the thick side. But point being on this is that you've got options that you can turn to when it comes to making these smoothies. And you can just, as much imagination as you have, you can do that with a smoothie. So here's an example of a blueberry smoothie. And you can see we've got some cashews there with some hemp seeds off to the side. And you just take that and mix it in a smoothie. And, hey, you've got a quick, easy option. And you get that down, out the door. It's even something that you can consume while you're on the way to work. Now, speaking of these jars, how about a mason jar salad? You guys ever seen a mason jar salad? Well, I've got a diagram or a picture there on the screen of a mason jar salad. And these are easy because you can prepare these where you've got layers in here, and these will stay good. I'm going to talk about how to layer these in just a second, but these will stay good. And literally when you're ready to consume the salad, you just come and open that jar, dump the ingredients out, and you've got a salad ready to go. Everything was cut up, diced up, and you're eating a healthy, nutritious meal in no time. So these are extremely nutrient filled. They're easy to prepare. You can customize them with the things that you want in there. But when it comes to the organization of how things are layered in here, you want to make sure that you're giving some thought to what has the most moisture and what has the least amount of moisture and what's going to stay good for a couple of days. And so when you start thinking about things that are thick and hard, those are things that you can put towards the bottom. So for example, maybe you've got something like cabbage or carrots, even some tomatoes, but tomatoes might want to go towards the middle. But these more firm vegetables, those you want to put at the bottom. The softer vegetables, those are going to go at the top, because we don't want them to get soggy and be limp. You want those to still have their natural texture when you go to consume your salad. So just give some consideration to how you're stacking things in there. And in general, some folks might want to just wait to add their salad dressing, especially if you're using something simple like an oil and vinegar. But if you want to take even that step out, you can add the oil and vinegar to the bottom of your layering, and literally as soon as you turn this upside down, it comes out and it covers your entire salad, and you didn't make the other vegetables in there soggy. So mason jar salads are a great way to do some meal prepping and save yourself some serious time. Especially, think about this. Let's say I like to have a salad in the summertime in the evening, and instead of having to come in and cut up all my vegetables every single night to put into a salad, what if I just did that all at one time, stuck them in the different jars that I know I'm going to be consuming, and I literally saved myself 6 days worth of meal preparation just in that one prep time. So this can be a real good way to leverage your time here if you're a fan of salads. At the end of the day, I want you to keep it simple. And we've all heard the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, and I'm by no means calling anybody stupid here, but we do want to keep it simple. We don't want to make things complex when they don't need to be. And so efforts towards meal prepping do add up, and you will see the benefits of this over time. You're going to find that you become better at this over time, which again is going to be a way to leverage for you. So even if you're not ready to go all out next Sunday, don't worry about that. There's a couple of simple things that you can do to get the ball rolling for yourself, right? We're just trying to launch out there. Don't feel like you got to climb the mountain all at one time. We just need to take the first few steps in the right direction. So here's a few ideas of how to do that. Double up on your dinner so you have leftovers the next day. That is just an easy way to take care of 2 meals with 1 meal preparation process. If you've got something that you're going to chop up and that you eat and that you plan to cook soon, do it in larger batches. For example, if you know you're going to be using onions in a couple of meals over the course of a week, go ahead and chop those up all at one time. So now all you're doing is going back and you're just getting those chopped onions and adding them to the dish that you're consuming. Start buying your staple ingredients in bulk. You know they're favorites of yours. You're going to be using them. Go ahead and buy them in bulk. If you're an individual, especially when we start talking about the cooler months and we're looking for something warm to nourish us with, stews, soups, crock pot, slow cooker recipes are ideal for this, because typically you're going to make enough food at one time to have food for several meals there as well. So you might as well go ahead and do that. So these are just a couple of the different ways you can incorporate a little bit of preparation into your food routine and start to receive the benefits and start to begin to reap those benefits from doing that. Now, more recipes. Come on, Dr. Hill, you've been giving me some good stuff here. Give me some more recipes to look at. I need some more ideas. Throw that stuff out to me and talk to me about how I can keep incorporating this into my routine and make better food choices every week. Well, for those of you that struggle with being able to make those food choices, I want you to look at this and you think, oh gosh, I like this. This all sounds good. But I don't know if I'm creative enough. I really don't want to go to Google or any other resource online and start to look up recipes. What if I don't like some of these ingredients that are in here? You know what? That's okay. Let's talk meal planning if that sounds like you. And what I've got is one of the things that I do with my patients and for individuals that are looking for meal planning is we have a discussion about what are your needs? What are you looking for in the process? What are your health goals? And let's talk about how to make this a successful meal prepping process for you specifically. And so by doing that, we can generate a convenient shopping list. And you'll see from This example right here, if I just pull out the fruits, you could take something like this. I was talking earlier about not wasting time in the grocery store or even getting to the grocery store. And if I have a list like this and I know exactly where I'm going and what I'm looking for in that produce section, I grab it and then I'm on my way. I'm on to the next thing that I need to pick up. Before I know it, I'm out of the grocery store. So a convenient shopping list is going to be very advantageous to your meal prepping and planning process. So there's two aspects to this that we have to differentiate here. There's the meal preparation process, and that's what I've been spending most of our time talking with you about. But now what we're really diving into is the meal planning process. We want to make sure that we efficiently plan so that we can more efficiently prep. What you see on the screen here is just an example of my personal meal planning assessment tool that I use with individuals that I'm working with. I want a tailored meal planning leading into meal prepping process that is unique to each one of us. We're not all the same. We're not all going to have the same wants and desires, likes, dislikes. So I want to understand who it is I'm interacting with so that I can develop a personalized program specifically for that individual. And just again, what you see here on the screen is a tool or a resource that we use to be able to help accomplish that. All right, now let's get prepping. You've got resources from our conversation here tonight. This is going to be posted up online, so you'll be able to go back and watch this again and be able to see the techniques and tips that I've shared with you. And then if you feel like you're ready to take that next step into planning, hey, let's have a conversation. Let's talk, and let me figure out how we can design a meal plan for you to meet what your specific needs and objectives are, and honestly, to take a lot of that decision making away so that you don't run into decision fatigue and you always have the best option there to reach for to meet your health goals. So with that being said, I do want to thank you for taking the time to learn more about the art of meal prep and the options that you do have available to you. I want to share with you in closing a couple of resources that I think you will find advantageous. If you're interested in learning more about this, you can go to drarlandhill.com, and that's going to be my clinic website. You'll find more about the work that I do there. You'll find out more about the services that we offer, and if you feel like, hey, I'm ready to get started, I need that tool and resource, drarlandhill.com is where you want to go. Just select that, book a consultation, and that's going to get you started on the right process. And also, I want to mention harvesthillsranch.com. If you're looking for the best uncompromising pasture-raised meat, eggs, this is the resource for you. This is my personal ranch that we support our patients. We support customers who are looking for quality food that they know exists but have a difficult time finding that. Harvest Hills Ranch is your resource for that uncompromising food that is going to have the nutrition that you're looking for. If you'll remember when I started out, I said that that nutrition was my passion, and that started at the farm, went to the family, and ended at the fork. Right, and so anything along that process, we're going to be able to cover you with. And I had to get involved in being able to support patients and give them a resource for the level and the quality of food that we were recommended that they consume in their diet to reach their health goals. We had to become an outlet for that simply because it was so difficult for my patients to be able to find. And so now we're proud to say that we have become that resource, and we like to think we do a very good job. And as I said, again, we don't compromise. We recreate the quality of food that you would expect if you're trying to reach your health goals. So with that all being said, guys, again, thank you for taking the time this evening to join the webinar. I look forward to interacting with some of you. And if there's anything I can do, you've got these resources. Take advantage of them and use them to your benefit. Have a good evening, everyone.